Cabrera, viewed from Mallorca, is just a silhouette, a distant image in the mist. On clear days, the island can be seen from high ground in Palma, the municipality to which it belongs. The hills of Naburguesa, the forest of Belver, and Cabrera in particular are natural areas that mark a contrast with the mainly urban landscape of the Balearic capital. The hills and the forest are within easy reach, but a visit to Cabrera, on the other hand, involves a trip over water, a journey that transports us to somewhere idyllic, nearby but isolated, out to sea, visible but only reached by water. Cabrera is home to treasures that remain hidden unless we set sail for the island. The distance from Palma to Cabrera is 30 nautical miles, or 55 kilometers. From Cabrera to the nearest point in Mallorca, Colonia de San Jordi, on the southern coast, it is only 10 miles. Before arriving on Cabrera, visitors first enter the waters of the national park. The islands and surrounding seas are protected in order to preserve the natural properties of the area, which is one of the best conserved in the Western Mediterranean. The first island we see is Na Foradada, with a small distinguishing lighthouse. There follows a series of islets such as Siot Pla, Na Pobre, Na Plana, L'Esponja, and Na Redona. The Illa dels Conills is the largest island we can see before arriving on Cabrera Gran. Around the main island are other islets such as Les Bledes, L'Imperial, Els Estels, L'Illa de les Rates. Cabrera has a jagged coastline with prominent headlands and sheltered coves. The Cape of Liebig, the headlands at Nanciola and L'Imperial, and the Cape Ventos may be considered the island's arms, and Loaya, Esburri, Cala Santa Maria, and the port are the island's lap. Slowly sailing into the port is an unforgettable experience. It produces the sensation of arriving right in the heart of the Mediterranean, settling into a place where nature and history are revealed to us in all their essence. Thanks to its position, its estuary of just 300 meters, and the capes that protect most of the island from the wind, the port offers a safe and sheltered resting point for travelers. The landscape is dominated by the castle, a unique building that looks like an extension of the rocks. The castle juts out from the island's otherwise gentle geography, made up of rounded hills and a wide valley between the hills of La Miranda and Na Picomosques. The landscape we can see from these hills is evidence of a Mediterranean climate of dry, hot summers and relatively mild winters. The vegetation is adapted to the long periods of drought that are typical of this climate. For this reason, many of the plants are short, with small, thick leaves, such as the Balearic astragals, the cochinettes, or socarrés. Further inland, wild olive trees and shrubs dominate the landscape. There are also savin, euphorbia, and endemic plants such as Rhamnus alaternus. Pine trees, once scarce as a result of goats, sheep, and deforestation, now occupy a significant area of the land. As is the norm in island ecosystems, there is a high concentration of endemic species. A significant proportion of endemic Balearic plant species are present in Cabrera. Peony and Gatovel, Astragalus balearicus, stand out as two of the most significant. Lizards are the best known animal species endemic to the island, and can often be seen in areas with human presence and on many of the islets. In total, there are 10 different lizard subspecies which have adapted to particular conditions of their habitat. These animals need heat in order to be active, and they can be seen in the hot months and on sunny days. Ornithological studies and ringing campaigns have identified more than 150 species of birds that make the island their resting and feeding place during their migratory journeys between autumn and spring. Many of these small birds are the prey of predators and form a significant part of the diet of the Eleanor falcon. This small, narrow-winged bird of prey, which flies quickly and acrobatically, uses Cabrera as one of its main breeding places. The most spectacular bird of prey is the osprey. In Cabrera, there are a few nests in inaccessible parts of the cliffs. Seabirds also breed on the island and islets. The most common of these is the common seagull, with its yellow feet and beak, more slender and slightly smaller than the Adowin seagull, with a red beak and dark feet. On the rocks, one can also observe cormorants with their distinctive long necks. Seagulls and cormorants never stray too far from the coastline. Shearwaters, on the other hand, live out at sea and hunt for prey by swooping down to the water's surface. In the Mediterranean, there are a significant part of the coastline that has been developed. Well-conserved places such as Cabrera are fundamental for the survival of all of these birds. The positive results of conservation are also evident in the sea and the protected waters of the archipelago that are teeming with life. Restrictions on fishing have produced what is known as the reserve effect. There is a greater number of fish They are larger in size and there is more variety. Posidonia seagrass covers significant sections of the sandy seabed. It oxygenates the water and is home to many species that shelter and breed in it. It grows from near the shore and reaches depths of up to 45 meters, depending on how transparent the water is. For this reason, we can observe, in all their magnitude, impressive underwater walls, which in some places can reach 90 meters in depth. Around these vertical walls, we can observe shoals of fish, such as damselfish, sea bream, or the impressive barracudas awaiting their prey. Amberjacks are also a large predatory fish, active and aggressive. Groupers are more static. These animals, severely threatened by fishing, are abundant and of a significant size. In all the waters of the national park, it is common to see cowfish, sea bass, and morays, which hide in the holes of the rocks. There are also invertebrates, such as the noble pen shell, which is very rare elsewhere. Octopuses and other mollusks are brightly colored in nudibranch. There are also crustaceans, including crayfish, crabs, and spider crabs, which are once neared extinction, but have recently been reintroduced to the park's waters. Sea turtles from animal rescue centers are often released into these waters once they have been threatened and treated for injuries caused by boats, fishing, or ingesting plastics. It is also common to find dolphins in the Cabrera Sea. The most common kind is the bottlenose, but further away from the coast, we can also find common and striped dolphins. A little further out, pilot whales rest and feed their young. And beyond the park's boundaries, perhaps attracted by the sea life in these waters, we can see the occasional sperm whale coming up for air, or flipping its tail out of the water before heading back down below. All of these species and ecosystems, one of the best examples of Mediterranean biodiversity, have been affected by the area's history. Passing of time with all its curious and dramatic events has left its mark on the islands, despite the area's small size and relative isolation. Seafarers have sailed these waters since ancient times in search of refuge in the port and food and water. The remains of Roman and Punic shipwrecks have been discovered here, and some of the objects they carried with them, particularly flasks for transporting wine, oil, and olives, are conserved in the old Celler Museum. Another historical episode that has made its mark on the island was the presence of a community of 7th century monks, as suggested by tombs that have been excavated near Sa Playeta, and letters from Pope Gregory the Great, who makes reference to discipline problems within the Cabrera religious community. Moving on through history to the 14th century, the castle, the island's most emblematic building, was built with the aim of defending the island and contributing to the defense of Majorca from attacks by Turkish pirates and Berbers. Various attacks on Cabrera have been documented, the most well-known undoubtedly being the attack by the pirate Dragut, who destroyed the castle, and after being defeated in Poyensa in the summer of 1550. When Western Europe began to control the waters of the Mediterranean, pirate attacks became less common, eventually disappearing in the 18th century. However, the island's tranquility was once again disturbed in 1809, while Spain was immersed in the War of Independence against Napoleon's army. At the Battle of Bailen, many French were captured as prisoners of war. Of these, 9,000 were taken to Cabrera, which was used as a prison colony, or more accurately, a concentration camp. Only 3,600 survived this period of captivity. Many of them arrived in Cabrera with illnesses or injuries, and conditions were extremely harsh. There was a lack of care, a lack of infrastructures, and food and water were scarce. The stories told in the letters written by the survivors are chilling. There is an island monument that commemorates these events. During the 19th century, Cabrera returned to normality and passed through the hands of different landowners. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were around 50 people living on the island, including fishermen, soldiers, lighthouse keepers, peasant farmers, and their families. The population was able to subsist on crops of cereals and vegetables, fig and almond trees, herds of goat and sheep, and firewood from the forest. At that time, there was a steamboat called the Cabrera, which provided a regular connection between the island and Palma. This enabled the first visits from travelers, scientists, and artists. The great traveler and scholar Archduke Ludwig Salvador of Austria included an extensive account in his work Die Balearen. Odon de Buen, a scientist from Oceanographic Center, visited Cabrera in 1908. The expropriation of the island in 1916 had important consequences for its future. Since then, it has remained the property of the Ministry of Defense. An army garrison was set up. Infantry and military artillery battalions were transferred here. Barracks were built, roads were constructed, and shooting exercises with real ammunition were carried out. In a period of increased tourism and urban growth all along the Mediterranean coastline, Cabrera was left relatively untouched. But some of these military functions were incompatible with natural values. Around that time, Felix Rodriguez de la Fuente included the island on his television program El Hombre y la Tierra, Man and the Earth. People began to take notice and stand up for the island, and the Parliament de las Islas Baleares unanimously requested its protection, which led to the declaration of national park status in 1991. After centuries as a refuge, a retreat for monks, a scene of battles and shipwrecks, a concentration camp, army barracks, an agricultural colony, and a rifle practice range, Cabrera finally became Spain's first national park to include both land and sea, and the only park on the Mediterranean coastline, even today, to include the sea beds among the protected areas. The Cabrera Archipelago forms part of the Spanish network of national parks, a collection of the country's most important and representative natural areas. It also forms part of the Natura 2000 network, which comprises protected habitats across Europe. The park's surface area is 10,000 hectares, with most of these, 85%, consisting of water. It is a government and managed by the autonomous community of the Balearic Islands. A team of technicians, guards, and educators work to conserve this natural area, and a board of trustees monitors the park's management. There are a number of legal documents that set out the island's values, establish the areas and their level of protection, and regulate the kinds of activities that can be carried out. Seafarers, for example, must request authorization to visit Cabrera, and with a special permit if they wish to spend the night moored to one of the port's buoys. The aim of these measures is to avoid the dropping of anchors, which could damage the Posidonia sea grass. It is also possible to travel to the island in one of the tour boats that offer excursions from the ports of southern Mallorca. There are specific areas with authorization for diving. Divers can enjoy the magnificent spectacle of Cabrera's marine life at one of the Mediterranean coastline's most attractive diving destinations. Recreational fishing and underwater hunting are prohibited throughout the park, and a fishing charter regulates commercial fishing, which is authorized only for professionals based at the region's ports who use certain fishing techniques. Research teams from universities and other centers conduct studies on the populations of fish and marine algae, species such as groupers and noble pen shells, and whales in the park waters and beyond. They also carry out periodic scientific bird ringing campaigns, monitoring ospreys and petrels' nesting habits, and other biological, geological, and archaeological studies. Cabrera National Park is open to school children who can go on guided tours of the island. These tours are also available for tourists, and there are signposts and information leaflets available for this. When exploring the island, it is important to remember to stick to the paths, and it is prohibited to leave rubbish, start fires, take away anything of historical interest, remove plants, or capture animals. There are different paths leading up to the castle and down to the beaches of the port, from which we can enjoy views of La Miranda and visit the monument to the French and the archaeological sites. By boat, visitors may also enter the Blava Cave. Cave is often the departing point for travelers beginning their journey back to Mallorca. On their way, if they are lucky, they will have dolphins swimming alongside them, guiding their way. Images from our journey through this small Mediterranean paradise will remain etched in our memories and in our hearts. We will remember the emotions and sensations of Cabrera's islands and the sea.